Ah, hello there. Let's see. Well, it looks like, well, I wanted to try something a little different today. Because, of course, we all know that D&D is super popular, everybody loves it, and but it also seems like a lot of people are kind of curious about trying other games, right? Like, they don't really necessarily know how to go about doing that. So, and that's exactly where I was not that long ago. So I kind of basically, I mean, of course, a lot of people want to try other things like Pathfinder or, see, I've heard Delta Green is pretty good. Like, there are just so many different other games to try, right? So, I don't know, but for me, none of those quite really stuck. I kind of wanted to try something off of the beaten path of like sci-fi, fantasy, the normal stuff. So, as luck would have it, I kind of just stumbled into this old James Bond 007, like old school game. Like this game came out in like 1983, and I don't really know why it appealed to me because I'm not even a Bond fan, or at least I wasn't as of like, when I started looking into this game. But yeah, it was just kind of interesting in that it offered something a little different. And I think I just basically just took my time with it. I think that was the key to helping me to kind of branch out. It's got a lot of oddities in and of itself because again, this is an older game. This was like in the 80s, which is what I personally considered to be the golden age of tabletop RPGs. That's kind of become a debatable topic, but I think the 80s was the golden age. Right now, if you ask me, I think we're more like in the silver age, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, comics have been in the silver age for like decades, and probably still are there. I don't know, but I mean, Silver Age isn't that bad either. So when everyone's like, "Ah, Golden Age this, Golden Age that," it's like, no, no, no. I feel like that time has passed. We're in the Silver Age. But anyway, I digress. Let's see. So when it comes back to James Bond, we're gonna start with character creation. That was kind of really where I first really sunk into the game. So yeah, we're gonna start with character creation. It's actually a pretty simple process once you break it down. Alright, so how it works is you get 3,000 generation points. Or that's, if you're making a rookie character, which, again, the game strongly recommends that if you're starting off, that should be the type you make. So, instead of how D&D is broken down into, like, traditional, like, numbered levels, like how, for instance, 5e goes from, like, 1 to 20, James Bond, it's more like tiers. So your character is a rookie tier character at first, starting off their career at MI6. And of course, if you want to make a more advanced character after you're a bit more familiar with the game, you can make an agent, using double that. So you have 6,000 generation points. Or of course, the more advanced, like the highly advanced, if you're making a character that can rival James Bond himself, then yeah, you're making a double O, which uses 9,000 points in character generation. So yeah, so as it all suggests, it is a point buy system. Which is my first time dealing with anything like that. And this game is also my first time using a percentile dice system. So that's normally been something I've been kind of intimidated by, but I'm really happy that I gave it a chance. And it really just kind of flows in a way that just kind of clicks, once you really get used to it. So hey, finally a game where you get to use those D100s. Of course, I'm talking specifically to the 5e crowd who might not have ever really used those dice. I know oftentimes when I've played, they just kind of sat by the wayside doing nothing. I've normally been able to get by with a D20 and a couple maybe D4s and D6s, of course depending on what character type you're using. But the way characters work in James Bond, it's pretty straightforward. It's pretty much everything you see right here. We'll go through all of this. Of course, because it's more grounded, in our human reality, so you're not dealing with, like, orcs and elves and halflings or half anything, really. So, it's pretty much straightforward. Now, the only differences between functionality of characters, other than what you put into it, is there's, like, a slight... females get slight advantages, which we'll go into in just a little bit. But... yeah, I made a little doobly-doo here that'll help us go through the process. We're going to walk through it all. First... We'll get our character's basic name, age, and their sex. I'm too lazy to decide all that manually, so yeah, we'll just go with the random. Okay. Oh, so it gave us Adriana Bishop. That's our character. So she's 32, which is almost the maximum age you can have for a character starting in this game. Basically, the age rule is your character is, I believe they're 27 plus 1d6, or it's 27 plus however long they've been in a field of experience, which, again, we'll get into later. But Adriana Bishop, she's 32. Let's see. Next, it's recommended we work on our height and weight. And honestly, that doesn't really have any bearing as far as game stats per se, but different heights and weights, think of it as like creating your profile, right? Like you want to keep a low profile. So if you're like really tall, then you're going to be easily noticed, obviously. And if you're really short, then you're also going to stand out as well. So it costs extra generation points to create a character that's kind of comfortably in the middle. So, of course, that standard is going to differ by male and female. So again, that's maybe one area where the distinction does matter. But since Adriana is a female, let's go with her height here. We're going to make her, how about 5'4"? So if you choose like 5'4" to 5'5", that kind of is functionally considered the same in the game. But of course, if I were writing this down on my character sheet, or character record as it's called in the game, yeah, I'm going to choose one or the other, obviously. So, let's say she's 5'4". Now, actually, how the game works is, now that cost us 160 of our 3,000 generation points. So we're making her a rookie, of course. And that gives her a fame of 50. And fame, that goes back to what I was talking about with profile. Fame is bad. Like you don't want to be famous as a spy. Again, 007 himself, he probably has a little too much fame for his field, as in he's very easily noticed. Like people recognize 007 as James Bond. But since we're rookie spies, no, we don't want to. No, we don't want that kind of recognition. We can't really handle that yet. But that's going to be a natural byproduct of our choices in character creation, is you accrue fame, and your fame kind of increases typically as you go on missions and as you do cool stuff, and sometimes not cool stuff. So high fame is bad, is the point I'm getting at. But as far as Adriana's height, selecting a height in this range for a female agent, it costs 160 points, and it adds 50 to our fame. And of course, you have to choose a weight that's kind of proportionate, whichever one of those makes more sense. It has to be fair in relation to your character's body types. You can't just optimize, as you will. This isn't Street Fighter 6 where you can create crazy proportioned characters. So, based on, I guess you could say maybe the standards of the time when this game was created, and maybe even what works best as far as, assuming someone is in peak condition for field work. Their weight range should be between 105 to 149 pounds. So I kind of like that 120 to 134 range, but of course, Adriana's female, so we have to pick something like that corresponds to female. So let's see, female to 120. Yeah, let's go with 125 to 134. I would say she's probably closer to 130, honestly. So, because that's such an average, very normal type of range, we picked a very, very normal range. So that's going to cost a lot of generation points to keep that profile, again, really low. So her height stands out a bit, but her weight is right about on target. So she doesn't stand out. She's not too skinny, not too fat, not too anything. She's about what you'd expect for that height. So, in order to keep that low profile, it costs us extra generation points. And next is we work on our appearance. And again, appearance, it's the world of James Bond. Everybody is either super attractive, if they're obviously a Bond girl or Bond himself. Normally he's a very conventionally attractive man. And of course, even a lot of his foes, of course, Bond girls are attractive. They're gonna be good looking. And even some of his enemies are good looking. Like Bond lives in a naturally good looking world. So if you want to kind of fit into that world, that's going to probably cost you a little bit extra. And if you want to stray too far from that aesthetic, then that also costs a good bit of points. So I normally go with attractive. Because now, in the positive side of things, appearance, having a strong appearance does help with seduction. So, of course, if you're going to be a character that's seductive or is built on charisma, then yes, then you might want to spend the extra points to maybe even go into striking which, again, it costs less in terms of generation points, but it does accumulate more fame. So really, for a lot of these physical features, that's the balance you're working with. You know, if it costs more generation points, then it's typically going to result in less fame. So if it costs less, if it costs fewer generation points, more fame. If it's more fame or less fame, you know what I'm trying to say, vice versa. So fame and generation points are the two factors that you're balancing here. Let's see. So we're gonna go with we'll stick with striking. So now again, we've got 3,000 points to spare. And honestly, I think at this point, these are the main three decisions that affect our fame. So we've got 50 plus 35, 60, 70, 85. Shut up. I'm trying to math here. So 85 is our fame. And actually going back to the female advantage I mentioned earlier, females get an automatic 40 fame deduction. I know that's quite a lot. And the reason being is that apparently, especially in the 80s James Bond world, you know, females aren't as suspected of being involved in spy work, which, I don't know, that doesn't quite make sense to me, because, I mean, again, we all know the meme of, hey, I don't care who the IRS sends, I'm not paying taxes. You know, like the whole idea of, yeah, we all know what a femme fatale is, but I guess, again, in the world of James Bond, there are lots of leeways that's given to the players and even to the characters themselves if you pay attention to how these sort of things operate in Bond films. They don't perfectly go by the rational logic of our world. I mean, how many times has Bond been captured and given ample opportunity to escape, right? When the obvious answer is just shoot him already and be done with it. So you know, you do have to deal with the fact that you are dealing with what am I trying to say? Like a hyper reality. You know, like the rules aren't the same as our rules, but it still has its own internal logic, right? So you have to kind of, and a lot of the rules are structured to kind of lean into that too, as we'll see in further as we go on here. All right, so we've got our basic physical stats all sorted out. Scars. Now that's something that we won't have to worry about as rookies. But if we were playing as agents or beyond, you know, they've likely received scars at some point in their career. And so depending on how you roll through this chart, you know, we have a different number of scars that can happen, and scars increase your fame, basically. That's all they do. They make you a bit more noticed. In fact, I didn't learn until very recently that James Bond himself even has a scar, or at least literary Bond. James Bond in the novels, he has a scar on his right cheek, which is kind of hard to miss. So it is one of those features that would definitely be that would constitute a fame increase in terms of the game. So if your character ever receives a scar of that sort of prominence, then their fame goes up, which makes it easier for enemies to identify them through covers and disguises, things like that. So so that's an interesting factoid there. Next, we'll go on to our characteristics. Most games would call these stats. You know, again, if you're familiar with D&D, you recognize a lot of these. We have strength, dexterity, will, perception, and intelligence. So yeah, again, a lot of these are similar to how they operate in D&D, especially the more bodily-oriented ones. And of course, intelligence, that's intelligence. As an agent, no, unlike D&D, these stats range, at least for agents, they range from 5 to 15. And it's naturally assumed as an agent that your base level is 5. So you get 5 across the board for free. But if you want to specialize in, you know, kind of, you know, if you want a character that's a bit stronger than they should be, or, you know, if you're going for the intelligence build, then yes, that's where this will come into play. Let's see. For the sake of building our character, I'm just going to go with semi-random, arbitrary responses to this, basically. And again, keep in mind that you gain experience points in this game, and you spend those experience points to build your character. So you can build upon these characteristics and build further skills as you go. So you don't have to go in with like the optimal version of your character in mind. Again, like most RPGs with a leveling aspect, you kind of, you gotta pace yourself a bit. Have a build in mind, but you get there in baby steps, one mission at a time. So for Adriana, I'm gonna say she's pretty dexterous, right? I'll give her maybe an 8. Let's see. Will, I'm gonna say she's pretty strong-willed as well. Perception, that'll kind of be our dump stat. We'll say she's not too perceptive, but we'll make her a bit smart to make up for that. And strength, I want to give her a little something. I don't like leaving all of. See, again, it's however you want to build it from there. So 5 is even, very average. Specialize upward from there. All right, so now is a good point to check on how many generation points we've spent before we go on to skills. All right, so let's see. We spent 200, 400. Okay, yeah, this is where math comes in. Unfortunately, this little tool doesn't do all of it for us, so we'll have to do it old school style. So 800. Okay, we spent 1,000 of our 3, so we spent 1/3 on our stats. And let's see. Plus 360. So 1360 plus 80. So let's go with 100. Minus 20, so that gives us 1480. All right. And so how skills work in this game is skills are purchased through spending generation points. And now we get charisma and driving. We get those 2 for free. So all agents get those. By agents, I mean characters, not to be confused with the rank of agent. So all characters get those for free. And for each skill after that, buying a skill, so if we wanted, say, lockpicking, then that's going to cost 100 points. And then they each cost 20 points to boost from there. And let's see. So here are our skills. Let's see. Ooh, where did I go? Give me just a moment here to get myself back together again. Let's see. There I am. So, our skills include boating. We have charisma, cryptography, and so on and so forth. So, let's see. And each skill kind of has a... now, you want to upgrade your skills because how they work is you have the stat plus the skill level. Now, by combining these, that's how you get your primary chance. And your primary chance is basically like the odds of the skill working under neutral circumstances. And yeah, we'll get more into that in greater detail. So let's see. We'll pick, say, 4 different skills we'll give her. She already has driving. Let's see. I like to give my characters each some kind of combat skill. Maybe not all of them, because like there's fire combat and there's hand-to-hand combat. They don't have to have both, but having at least one or the other is always going to be a handy thing. So I'm going to spend 100 points to give her fire combat. And we'll calculate fire combat using our dex and our perception. And skills that use 2 stats, they tend to average them, and then you add your skill level. So we'll give her fire combat for 100, and we'll spend, let's see, yeah, we'll boost that up to 5. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, that's 100 in leveling it and 100 in buying it. So let's see, so that's 200 points for fire combat. And again, this isn't optimal build, this is just demonstration build, but we'll see how this character works out. So then that's 1680. And let's see, what other skills should we give her? Okay, disguise. This covers the ability to alter one's appearance for deceptive purposes. So how disguise works is it's basically like there are two variations of it. There's specific and generic. Specific is more like when you're like kind of like the Mission Impossible style, where it's like, all right, you're gonna rip off the latex mask and reveal that yeah, you weren't really Doctor So and So all along. You were really a secret agent. That's a specific disguise that requires a lot more effort. You know, again, latex, maybe even practicing how to mimic their voice. So that one is might be needed for if you're trying to get very specific information, trying to get to a specific goal. But generic, that's the typical. All right, cha karate chop a guard, knock him out, steal his uniform, and just kind of blend in with your environment. So we'll say that she's fairly skilled at that. So we're gonna buy that one again for another 100, and we'll say she's not quite as good at that one as with a gun. So we'll give her maybe 4 points of that. So 80. So 180 points will be dedicated to disguise. Let's make sure we mark that down on our sheet here. Disguise at 4. And that's 180, 17. Let's see, that's 1860, if my math is correct. All right. And let's see, what are her strengths here? We've got will. Let's see if we can use any skills that use willpower to our advantage. Will, dex, and intelligence. So those will be our 3 skills of focus. We'll see what we can do with those. Let's see. Driving is perception and dexterity, which isn't bad. We might do something with that. Piloting is perception and will as well. Yeah, let's give her some science. Science is good. She's got a pretty decent intellect. Let's see. We'll give her science. So, again, that's another 100 points. And we're going to skimp on that. We'll at least give her access to the skill. Maybe that's something that Adriana will work on as she develops herself throughout her career. So, let's see. It's 20 points per level after the initial purchase. So, let's see. We'll give her 2 points in that. So, that's 140 for science. 140 for science. And let's make sure we mark that down as well. 2. And that's 140. I believe that brings us right to 2,000. Yeah, so she's got 1,000 to go. All right. And now if I were making this character for true play, I would probably just kind of focus on the skills that she has. But I think I might do that actually. I might buy maybe one more skill. I might get greedy and buy one more skill. Like I said, I wanted to focus on a skill that plays to her true strength, which is willpower. So let's see if we can find that. Let's see. Gambling is perception, which isn't her thing. Local customs is perception. Interrogation, that's intelligence. She's also good at that. Let's see, its evil counterpart is torture, and that's not exactly an NPC. I mean, it's not a player character skill. That's more like something an NPC would have. So the game does insist. The game is pretty insistent upon that too. So I mean, we're good guys. So we interrogate. We don't torture. Let's see. We have pickpocketing, seduction. Now seduction uses willpower. It uses that plus charisma. So yeah, actually, this seduction is a very complicated skill in this game. That might almost warrant its own video, basically. But it uses charisma, which is important to have in general. Charisma basically works as far as like general persuasion. But seduction is a whole skill that's kind of its own whole mini game itself. In fact, you might even notice there are a couple of times throughout the films where, yeah, Bond is charismatic as all get out, like consistently, whether he's played by Sean Connery, Roger Moore, George Lazenby or Pierce Brosnan, Daniel Craig, whatever. You name your favorite Bond of choice. Having high charisma is a very Bond trait, right? But you notice he doesn't always get the girl. I mean, sometimes he has to, he has to work hard for it, right? So those might be cases where seduction might have been challenging, even for Bond himself. So keep that in mind. I think the game also does a pretty good job of simulating that. Let's see. Again, we're searching for willpower. If seduction is the only skill that uses will to that extent, then we will go for it. But yeah, will is also, charisma itself uses will. All right. Well, but I guess that makes sense. No surprise there. Mountaineering, that uses willpower plus strength. All right, you know what? Let's go for it. Let's go with mountaineering. So yeah, we'll give her mountaineering, even though I don't think strength is necessarily her skill. But again, this is a concept character. So we'll go back and give her mountaineering. Let's see. And that's actually pretty good for climbing things, of course. So basically, the whole point of it is you want to try to have at least one character, especially if you're playing with multiple characters. You want to try to have, a very evenly split team as far as skills. So having someone that's, different characters that are good at different things. I mean, but then again, that makes a lot of sense, right? So let's see. We spent 120. All right. And, well, actually, now that we've got an idea of the skills in play, maybe now would be a good idea to reevaluate our stats. So, let's see what we're working with here. Oh, let me switch back. I'm sorry. So there we go. Here's our updated screen on what we're working with. So this is what Adriana Bishop looks like now as far as her capabilities. And so yeah, as I was mentioning before, now might be a good time to kind of reevaluate her stats here, see what works best for us. So mountaineering kind of demanded a bit more strength, right? So let's bump that up just a little bit. So we've already put 100 in the bag. 200, we can spare an extra 100 there. That's 220. Let's see. Okay, 300. And notice, yeah, these are not cumulative. Like, this becomes the new value. So it's not like we spent 100, then 200, then 300 to get here. No, 300 is how much it costs to get 8 points. So, let's see. I think really, for the sake of moving on, what we'll do is we'll kind of just keep boosting these up by, we'll boost up what she has from here. So let's see, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. All right, so it costs 120 to give everything an extra round of things. So we'll do that. All right, so that was 120 there. So that brings us to 2440. And let's see. Yeah, let's actually go ahead and make her super charismatic. So we'll give her 5 more points there. So that brings her charisma up to 7. And we spent 100, so 2540. Let's see. So now we've got to figure out how we're going to spend. Yeah, see, this happens pretty quickly. Like, she's actually a pretty sturdy character here. Let's give her some perception here. Let's see if we can dump some points there. 200 to get her at 7. So now we're at 2740. Let's see. Let's bump these both up a bit. Okay, so we've given them both an extra 100 points there, so that brings us to 27, 8, 9, 2940. Okay, so now we can probably spend maybe a few more points on her skills here. So let's see, 2, 4, 6. Okay, we got 3 more points. I'm gonna dump 2 in driving, and the last one will go to science. All right. So there we go. I think that's a pretty good build for her. We spent our 3,000 points with that. And that actually brings us on to her attributes. Let's see. Now, her speed. Oh, let's see. Now, that's going to be based on, again, the total of certain characteristics. So, perception and dexterity, if that total ranges between 8 to 15, reflex speed is 1. Perception is 8. Dexterity is 8. So that brings us up to level 2 in speed. So speed is actually pretty useful in this game. Speed will actually come in handy, especially in combat. So that speed is kind of like, basically it's initiative. It's pretty much initiative, like in D&D terms. Stamina. All right, it's basically your ability to resist exhaustion. And yeah, once you get past that limit, it causes you a -3 ease factor penalty, which we'll get into later because this video is getting kind of long. This is a lot longer than I was expecting. So yeah, ease factor is that's important for dice rolls. We'll talk about that next time. But as it stands, her stamina score is, if her willpower ranges between 6 and 10. Yeah, her willpower alone. Her willpower is right in between that. So she has 28 hours of stamina. Running and swimming. I didn't have it marked here, but yeah, running and swimming are both kind of the same thing. As far as the rating there, let's see. For willpower, and again, this is where willpower really comes into play. And she has 25 there. And strength is determined by carrying capacity determines strength, and it also determines your skill in hand-to-hand weapons as well. I didn't give her any skill in that in particular, which going back, I kind of regret that now, but we'll see how that goes. Strength is 6 to 10. Weight limit is 101 to 150. And what that means in terms of the game is you can carry anything that's less than that indefinitely. So let's say like if you're carrying like a 90-pound kid, then you don't have to worry about about becoming tired because of that. Which again, you're a quasi superhero, so I guess that's fine. But if it's within that range, let's say if it were like like a teenager or something, I don't know, like if it's like an adult, like a young adult, which would weigh around about that within that range, then you can carry that up to your will stat in minutes. So 9 minutes is how much Adriana can carry a smaller, a reasonable, a small to mid-sized adult, let's say. She can carry them for about 9 minutes without exhaustion becoming a factor. And of course, if it's 151 pounds or more, no, she can't do it. She needs a stronger person to help out. So that's basically how that works. And our hand-to-hand combat class, let's see, that's also dependent on strength. Her strength is not 9. Now, actually, the hand-to-hand class, I thought it was odd at first in that it goes from A being the lowest. We're so used to, C's get degrees, but A is the way, that sort of thing. So that comes into play later on when we go into weapons and their damage classes. But yeah, that's basically how that goes. And believe it or not, we're done. Now, there are some optional rules which we're not going to use, but I'll cover those. No weaknesses. Basically, those give your character a flaw in exchange for more generation points. So, again, Bond himself, wow, that was an interesting voice crack. Bond himself has the interesting weakness of, well, actually, he's quite an alcoholic, of course. So yeah, Bond probably has 2 weaknesses. He has dependence upon alcohol. If you want to play a character that's like that, and they get 75 generation points, but that does give them the weakness, which comes into play. And of course, attraction to opposite sex, and that, of course, in Bond's case, he can't resist a woman. If a woman's in trouble, he's got to help. And what that means is that he gets 50 generation points for that weakness. But what that means is that when presented with that element, so like if he's in a case where there's alcohol or women, he has to make a willpower roll to avoid kind of being distracted by that temptation. So if he fails that willpower roll, then again that kind of that limits the options of what that character will be able to do in that situation. So instead of being able to, while all the other agents might be able to keep their cool and focus on evading the enemy, then the character with a weakness for the opposite sex might be compelled to check on the girl. The GM might not give them many other options outside of that. That's how that would play out. And fields of experience. We'll end on that note. As we mentioned earlier, your character age, Adriana Bishop, is 32 years old. That was kind of randomly decided. But if we wanted to play with the fields of experience rule, we would say she's 27 plus however many years she spent in a prior career. Now, of course, spending time in a previous career builds fame in that field, but it also gives you 20 generation points in that career, but it's spendable specifically within that field. So let's say if she were a journalist, then that gives her the ability to spend those generation points within these skills. That doesn't give her these skills, but it gives her the ability to spend within those skills. So if that makes sense, like the bonus generation points that she accrued from her field goes into these skills. And also, for every year, she gains a field of experience, which is like a proficiency, essentially. So how that works in the game, it's either you have it or you don't. You don't necessarily have to roll for it. So by having this field of experience in computers, that just means she knows her way around a computer, which would be helpful because she has science. So she might know some things about computer science, essentially, and so on and so forth. Or political science in this case. So, yeah, that's basically how that goes. And with that, we have created our character, Adriana Bishop. Basically, we would assign her a weapon, a pistol, basically, of some sort, and she would be ready for service. And just like that, we've created our first character for James Bond. Pretty cool, huh? Well, stay tuned for next time, where we'll go more into skills and maybe some game mechanics. And we'll talk about what some of these things might have meant, like the hand-to-hand combat class, like how that works. We might get into how some of these skills are used in practical gameplay, and just other kind of odds and ends like that. So, with that, thanks for stopping by, take care, and I will see you guys next time.